Since the year 2017, the Salima Lilongwe Water Project has been a bone of contention. This is a project which seeks to increase water availability in Lilongwe, and it has faced a number of challenges. Khato Civils was awarded a contract for the implementation of the $400 million United States project, which has since been reduced to $298 million United States. There are some unanswered questions. What is the status of the Lilongwe Salima Water Project? How will the residents of Lilongwe benefit from this project? Has an environmental and social impact assessment been conducted? These are some of the questions that I'll be asking the Chief Executive Officer for Khato Civils, Mr. Mongezi Mnyani, in this special program. My name is Chancellor Zabanda. You can also join the discussion by sending your comments or questions through our Facebook page, Zodiac Online. Mr. Mongezi Mnyani, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you so much. And good evening to the viewers of Zodiac.
Thank you very much. First things first, who is Mongezi Mnyani?
Mongezi Mnyani is the Chief Executive Officer for the Khato Civils Group, which basically is a construction company that is having its headquarters here in South Africa, Johannesburg. But we do have offices in Botswana, we do have offices there in Malawi, we have offices in Zambia, we have offices in Zimbabwe, and also in Ghana. So we are operating within the African continent, and we are planning to expand to many more countries, and soon we'll be expanding to Mozambique, also to do some roads projects and water projects there. So I am responsible for making sure that the entire group of companies falling under Khato Holdings are operating smoothly, but also making sure that we do projects as expected from our clients. So Khato Civils is one of the big companies here in South Africa. We are 100% black owned. The company is owned between myself and Mr. Simbi Piri, who is a Malawian, and there is no other persons besides our families that are running this business. So indeed, it's a pure 100% pure black, 100% owned company.
Now, talking about the projects that you're implementing, what are the major projects that you're implementing in Africa?
Well, our major focus is mainly on roads and also on water and sanitation. We do specialize quite a lot in those two areas. We are recently doing quite a number of projects now in Botswana. We are busy also in Zimbabwe doing a feasibility study for a road between Bait Bridge, Bulawayo to Vic Falls. We also doing another one in Ghana between Accra and Kumasi. And then also in Botswana, we've just finished a big project in Botswana, which was 100 kilometers, and we did it within record and also on budget. That project has just been commissioned by the president of Botswana last month. So the water now is running from Masama to Mamashia, and we're quite happy with that. We are busy now with a big water treatment plant there in Mamashia in Botswana, whereby we're expanding the current capacity of the treatment plant, so that therefore it can store more water and be able to distribute to the entire Gaborone. So and there, you know, in Malawi, we're doing the Salima Lilongwe Water Project, which basically we'll be talking about in this interview. We are also busy here in South Africa. There are a number of projects also here.
Now, Mr. Mnyani, involvement of local communities in implementation of projects is very critical nowadays. How is your involvement of local communities when implementing various projects here in Africa, and maybe Malawi in particular, as you'll be implementing the Salima Lilongwe Water Project?
We take that matter very serious as Khato Civils. You know, we are having a model that we utilize whenever we implement projects. We don't like importing people, especially where it's ordinary skills that are required. We'll only bring our middle management people just to make sure that the project is run smoothly. But in a nutshell, we are going to recruit Malawians from each and every village where the project or the pipeline will be going, so that then we're able to give them opportunities for work. Secondly, we'll also be employing and working with various companies that will basically be also employed to do certain works. And making sure that in the process, people are employed. So we are having that model that we're utilizing as Khato Civils in order to make sure, therefore, that we also give opportunities to the local people.
You're involved in as Khato Civils. It's very critical for sustainable development. How would you look at Africa? How is Africa doing? Is it on the right track in terms of infrastructure development?
Well, Africa is on the right track. Let me tell you that. And I think most of the countries now are starting to really improve on the infrastructure, because the infrastructure projects basically open up the country for big economic opportunities. They create jobs. But again, infrastructure is quite important, because that's where basically people get services from, whether it's energy, whether it's roads, whether it's water, and so forth. So we're seeing quite a lot of developments now that are happening within the African continent. And it's quite pleasing, you know, that at least now governments, of course, working with the private sector, we see a number of projects now that are coming, and we've seen now that your World Bank, your African Development Bank is also financing some of these projects. They are not easy projects to put together or to package. They require a lot of funding. They require a lot of expertise to do that. So in most instances, what I've seen here in the continent is that most governments now are doing what is called a triple P, which is a public-private partnership, whereby companies like us, you know, will go out and source funding in the market and implement such projects, you know, and make sure therefore that you then create jobs, but at the same time, you are therefore able to refinance the project and able to pay back the loan of the money that you've borrowed. For instance, the project we'll be doing in Ghana is going to be tolling of the road. So which means therefore that we go and source funding, and then once this funding has been received, we do construction. Once construction is done, therefore the road can be used, but it's going to be tolling, whereby there's an end user who pays, and therefore once they pay, the money goes and repay the loan. So I think that model is starting to work very well, because companies like us have that capacity that we know who the financiers are all over the world, that we can talk to, what sort of appetite do they have for which projects, and that works very well. But again, government fiscus is under pressure. You know that governments now are not collecting as much as they can from the taxes, and therefore the money therefore that they're collecting mostly will go towards your health, your education, and other social needs. But when it comes to infrastructure, then governments now are forced to actually remodel their strategies. Hence, the triple Ps are the way to go now. So we're quite impressed that at least in the continent now, we're seeing quite a lot of progress, including here in South Africa, whereby a lot of businesses now are coming together and raise funding and start implementing the projects on behalf of government, of course.
Now, as one of the big construction firms that we have in Africa, what role is Khato Civils going to play to ensure that you play a part in the provision, or maybe looking at infrastructure development in Africa as a whole?
Well, we are busy talking to quite a number of countries. I mean, right now, as I've said, we're exploring to go to Mozambique. They were also looking at the roads projects and also to water and sanitation. But we believe that as Khato, because we are a South-based company and we've gained sort of so much experience working here in South Africa, and we believe therefore that it's going to be quite easy to work in the continent. But again, we are very cautious that as we work in the continent, you know, we don't come with bullying tactics. We work very closely with local companies. We work very closely with government and the local stakeholders, just to make sure that indeed there is coordination, but also collaboration between us as Khato and the government, and also the people that will benefit from the project. So I believe therefore that the continent has got so much opportunity, and I think it's up to us and other companies to grab that opportunity and make sure that the continent prosper. Why should we always rely on European companies and also Chinese, you know, to come and do these projects, whereas we have that capacity to do this work? We've got what expertise, and we've got the muscle to raise the finances required for such projects. So I think it's high time, therefore, that Africans do things on their own and not heavily rely from people from outside of the continent. So I would therefore urge that we as companies like ours and the rest of the continent, we get together and formulate this strategy of making sure that indeed we support one another where we work, also we build one another, which is very much important.
Yeah. To the Salima Lilongwe water project, there have been a number of questions on this project. Give us a picture. What's the status now? And maybe how is this project going to be implemented by Khato Civils?
Well, this project is now at a very advanced stage. We have done all the designs. We have conducted all the requirements before we start the construction. So the environmental impact studies have been done and concluded. The feasibility study was done and concluded and signed off. Now, where we are now is that Lilongwe Water Board has approved all the designs that we have put together. They are quite happy with them. So right now, we are waiting for the construction to start, and we are busy finalizing now the funding for the project. So I think we've come a long way since 2017. Unfortunately, there's been a series of delays, that we've experienced in this project. In some instances, there was a serious opposition to it by the European companies. There were also European countries that we had to engage with, because they believe that this project is too big for Malawi. And they believe that also who is Khato to actually undertake such a project. So I think there was a lot of undermining that also we experienced in the process. But we fought, because we believe that we had a legitimate project that was awarded to us. It was a tough competition. There were 7 companies that actually bidding for this project, and we won the project. And as I'm talking to you right now, we are in the final stages of securing funding. We have been talking to some Australians who have now come on board. They've given Malawi government good, say, financial terms, which we have agreed upon in terms of now the loan that needs to be borrowed for the work to be undertaken. Where we are now is that the Minister of Finance and the Lilongwe Water Board are supposed to be signing the documents for the loan agreement. And if anything goes and everything goes well, we intend to start next year, January, when we come back from the December break. Right now, we are intending therefore that before the 20th of December, that loan agreement should be sealed between the financiers that are coming from Australia and the Malawi government, and that process is spearheaded by the Minister of Finance and the Lilongwe Water Board. But unfortunately, I must say also that there has been some delays also with the current Minister of Finance, because the terms for the loan were finalized on the 18th of October, 2018, and unfortunately, this year on the 18th of October. And unfortunately, the process took longer than we anticipated, because there's been somehow confusion whether is the Lilongwe Water Board going to be the borrower, is Khato going to be the borrower? And we made it very clear to the minister that Khato Civils cannot be the borrower. We were asked mainly to go and source funding for the project, but the loan agreement will be signed between Malawi government and the financiers. And again, there's been a confusion whether indeed this has been an engineering, procurement, and construction and finance project. And we said, no. This is engineering, procurement, and construction. We were therefore asked by the previous Minister of Finance to say, look, Malawi government cannot be in a position to basically fund this project from the fiscus. Can you therefore, as Khato Civils, facilitate the funding thereof? Because we have the capacity to go out there and then source funding. And indeed, that's what we did. So I'm quite happy now that last week, Thursday, the president, honorable president, has signed and given instruction that the project must go ahead. So we're expecting, therefore, that this week there's going to be a lot of developments. We're expecting, therefore, that the Minister of Finance, through the Lilongwe Water Board, they are going to be signing the term sheet, and therefore the lawyers will start drafting the loan agreement. And we anticipate, therefore, that on the 20th of December, that loan agreement should be signed between the Malawi government and the financiers. So the terms also are quite favorable to Malawi government. As you know, that Malawi is not a very rich country, and we had to therefore make sure that the loans will therefore not expose Malawi that much from a fiscal point of view. And I'm quite happy, therefore, to say that the financiers that we've secured indeed understand the plight of Malawi, and therefore the terms and conditions are very much favorable to the government of Malawi, including some of the elements of the World Bank and the IMF, because they previously raised concerns that can Malawi indeed government be able to borrow and have a loan of this nature, given the finances that they have and the economic situation that is then Malawi. But we believe, therefore, that what we've been able to secure now will indeed be favorable, and therefore the project in earnest will go on next year between January and February next year.
Now, Mr. Mnyani, besides Lilongwe Water Board, which other stakeholders are going to benefit from this project?
Well, as you know that, we are going to be abstracting the water from the lake into Lilongwe, and the other areas between Salima and Lilongwe will be benefiting from this project. So the agreement with Lilongwe Water Board is that the Central Water Board also can be in a position to benefit from this water. Of course, because the water will be treated, it will be cleaned, so it will be easy for them to also utilize the water for their own villages and other areas that are between Salima and also to Lilongwe. The other people that will benefit a lot also in this instance will be the suppliers, that will be working with Khato there in Malawi. Also, it will be a lot of companies, subcontractors that will be subcontracting for various works that will be doing this. So there's going to be an inclusive beneficiation, if I may say so, to this project. So Khato, as our model, we always work with local people, and in this instance also, local people will benefit from this project.
This is a very project, and there will be need for a huge amount of electrical power. We know that Malawi at this point in time, we're having the challenges in electricity, load shedding and all that. Have you considered this aspect as Khato Civils?
Yes, we have considered that aspect. What we did then was to make sure that as part of our design element of the project, we had to make sure therefore that also we've got generators that will be installed in all the pump stations, so that then if there's any problem with power or energy, the generators will kick in and make sure that indeed there's no disturbance with regard to the water flowing from Salima to Lilongwe. But also what we've been able to do is to work with ESCOM, as part of the project in another phase. ESCOM is planning to upgrade the energy along the route of the pipe, so that therefore it can be able to assist with the project. But with the current supply, we are quite confident that indeed there isn't going to be any disruption. But also with us putting the generators, in all the pump stations, we are quite confident therefore that indeed the water will be pumped throughout, and there's not going to be any other disturbances with regard to disruptions of energy or electricity.
Now, Mr. Mnyani, if I'll take you to earlier this year, we heard that Lilongwe Water Board and some government officials prefer that you use ductile iron pipes, and you also expressed concern with this arrangement. Now, for a layman like myself, break it down for us.
Well, when we planned the project, indeed, we wanted to use a ductile iron steel, which is a much preferred method of transporting water. But unfortunately, due to COVID, we've learned a lot that, there are no guarantees, because ductile is only manufactured in Europe and also in China. Now, we have learned quite a lot with our project in Botswana that there can be serious delays because the factories in China and also in Europe were not 100% operating yet because of COVID. But again, there are no guarantees that indeed the pipe or the pipes will actually arrive on time. So what we've therefore opted to do was to look into mild steel, which our engineers and the Lilongwe Water Board had to go down and basically, from an engineering point of view, assess. And we made a good assessment, and we felt that given the experience that we've had in Botswana now, using a mild steel, indeed in this project also, the mild steel pipe can be utilized. And what is good with that mild steel is that it will be produced here in South Africa and transported to Malawi. And we're quite certain, therefore, that the companies that we work with here, and also with IsoMetal, which is the steel producers, we've got a partnership now with them. So there won't be any disruption in terms of us running out of steel, but also the pipes will be manufactured on time. We have learned that from the Botswana project that we've done. So We therefore believe, therefore, that the mild steel will also do the similar work that, or give us the similar results that the ductile iron is going to give us. But the risk with the ductile was that there are no guarantees that the pipes will arrive on time. There are no guarantees that the factories won't close down. Can you imagine? You've paid already deposit, you've paid for the pipes, and somehow the factories shut down. What happens in that? So that's a risk that we've identified in terms of using ductile, because it's produced only in Europe and also in China, and therefore that was the biggest risk to the project. So we propose, therefore, that the mild steel is produced in South Africa. We now have a partnership with ArcelorMittal. There won't be any shortage of steel to actually produce the pipe itself. So we're quite happy with that. And the Long Water Board has approved now that indeed we can use the mild steel.
Now, there are a number of comments and questions on our Facebook page. But before I get to to these comments and questions, the chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Natural Resources, Honorable Welani Chirenga, made some allegations that some government officials seem to favor the Diampi project other than the Salima Lilongwe Water project. Do you think this has got some implications on the project?
Well, it was there before, because, I will tell you that when we were appointed for this project, there was, of course, discussions within government, but also there was a preference from the World Bank, to say they would want to fund Diampi Dam instead of going for the Salima Lilongwe Water project. But I think through some discussions and also engagements with the World Bank, ultimately in September last year, the World Bank approved that indeed this project can now go ahead. I do have a letter in that instance that comes from the World Bank, whereby now they're saying they can be in a position therefore to support the project. But I think initially everybody doubted and was asking questions, why therefore this project? But unfortunately, some people had their own preferences. But also again, even if you actually increase the Diampi Dam, there is no certainty or guarantee that indeed water will not be scarce in Lilongwe. But with this project, we are quite certain that we'll be able, therefore, to get water for the next 50 years coming from the lake, of course. And those are the guarantees that we had on this one. I would say right now, there's been a change from the various government sources and government settles that indeed this project is required more than ever. So there is support now for the project. And I guess there has to be that understanding that indeed we had to engage with the Long Water Board and other stakeholders to make people understand why therefore this project is important.
Getting to the comments, Jacob Jemita would like to know more about compensation issues. Are you going to use the first survey, or you are coming up with a new one? And on corporate social responsibility, who will be deciding on community needs?
Well, on corporate social investment, that is our model that we utilize and also we implement in all our projects. But the way we do it is that we consult with the local leadership in the sense of maybe the local chiefs that are in the villages within the route where the pipe is going. We assess their needs and we basically make sure that all the CSI projects that we're doing are of benefit to the entire community, not looking at individuals. But in some instances, you'll find that there are destitute families that, for instance, might need assistance. We'll look into those and see how we can help. For instance, in Botswana, we had to basically build a house for a destitute family that were living in a makeshift tent. And we could see, therefore, that this was indeed a disaster. And therefore, we looked at it, we assessed it, we worked with locals, and I'm happy to say now that family has moved into a very big house, which we have built as Khato. So our approach, therefore, is that for each and every village where the pipe will be moving, there has to be some corporate social investment that we must do as Khato. But we do that in consultation with the local communities, with the local leaders, so that then indeed we actually address those needs that are seen to be critical, but also would be of benefit to the entire community or that village that we're talking about. So indeed, CSI, it becomes a pillar of our work in terms of what we do in this project. And let me say, this money for CSI is not part of the project, but this is money that Khato on its own actually impart with in order to actually support the community. So it's not part of what we are charging government in terms of the work that we do. No, it's part of the profit that will generate from the project, and then we plow it back to the communities or the villages that actually will be along the pipeline itself.
A question here from Gogo Chalo. Why is Khato Civils not bidding in any road construction project in Malawi?
We have done some feasibility studies for some of the roads there in Malawi, and I think when we started with this water project now, we will therefore be in a position to also engage further with government and see how then we can assist with the building of the roads in Malawi. But indeed, there's been a series of interventions that also we tried to do. But I think for now, our focus has been mainly on the Salima Lilongwe water project so that at least it can get off the ground. And I'm sure once that project is already now happening next year, we will therefore be also focusing on now, let's look at the roads. But indeed, there are some roads that are in the pipeline that we'll be looking into in Malawi.
Prince Alfred Power, what principles have you put in place to make sure that this project will be helpful to Malawians, not to politicians?
Well, as I've said, that Malawians will benefit quite a lot from this project, and we'll be employing Malawians. We're looking at not employing less than 5,000 people throughout the construction of the project over the 22 months. So indeed, Malawians are going to be the ones benefiting from this project. And again, I can safely say also again that local companies will also benefit from this project, and also suppliers will benefit from this project. Those that are in construction will be subcontracted by us as Khato to work with us in various areas of the project. So indeed, that benefit is going to come to the people of Malawi, not certain individuals or politicians. No, our philosophy as Khato is to work with people, make sure that at the end of the day, we leave legacy in the projects that we do. And I think in Malawi, that will be the same principle that will be applied.
A question from Loveness Mbewe. She's asking, what shall be the monthly power or energy requirement for pumping, treating, and distributing water within Lilongwe City?
Well, the energy that will be required, as I've said, that the current source of energy that ESCOM has will actually be able to pump the water and assist in pumping the water. But what we've done is that in all the pump stations, the 3 that we'll be building, we have put extra generators to make sure that indeed there's sufficient energy at all times in terms of pumping the water and making sure that there's no disruption that will be happening. So rest assured that indeed the plan that we've put together will actually make sure that there's less problems, but also make sure that there's continuous pumping and also flowing of the water to Lilongwe.
There is another interesting comment here from Gerard Banda. How does your company employ people? I just see people working, but have never seen any advertisement for any vacancy, especially on the Salima project.
No. We have not yet started to work. I mean, right now we're only doing the designs, which was mainly engineering aspects of the work. But indeed, when we then start to do the construction, we'll be advertising there in Malawi in all the national newspapers. We'll be advertising in our website, but also we will be working with the local leaders in terms of in each and every village where the pipe will be going, we'll be recruiting from those villages. So normally how we work is that we asked the leadership of the village to say, for argument's sake, we need about 20 people in this village. They themselves then will go and get those people for us, but we don't want to be involved whereby now there are problems. Khato will be accused of biasness or favoring some certain individuals or people. So what we do then is to work with the local leadership and make sure that they bring those people to us. We assess their skills. If those that needs to be trained, we train them. Those that need to upskill their skills, we upskill them. But indeed, we will be advertising in all the villages. We will be advertising in various newspapers so that then we get the right skills that we want.
Maybe the last one, it seems you're running out of time, from Erad Paul Major. When will Salima Lilongwe water project commence, and what Malawians should expect in terms of the pace at which the project will be carried out?
Well, we are expecting that by February, the construction should be starting, and the project is going to take 22 months to complete. And we are quite excited and also confident that with our capacity, but also with our modern machinery that we use in terms of construction, we are going to be able, therefore, to do the project with speed. Currently in Malawi, we have two big machines that we'll be utilizing in this project, which basically can trench up to 5 kilometers a day. And we believe, therefore, that with those machines, the project will be done with speed, quality, and also within the timeframes that we've agreed with in our contract with the Lingua Water Board. So indeed, Khato Civils owns its own equipment. So we'll be bringing more equipment to Malawi so that we're able, therefore, to utilize it and make sure that the project becomes a success. Already, as I'm talking to you, some of the equipment is already in Malawi. Actually, it has been there for the past 3 years or so. And we'll make sure we bring much more now in that regard.
Pleasure having you in the program. But lastly, what's your final word?
Well, what I can say is that we want to thank the president for his leadership that he has shown since coming to office, and therefore we will excel and make sure the project becomes a success. But also to Malawians, let's work together. This is your project. It's not a Khato project, but Khato is just there to implement the project. But let's work together to make sure that indeed people within the Lilongwe and the surrounding areas have potable water, have good water, and there will be less disruption in terms of water distribution within Lilongwe City.
Mr. Munyani, thank you very much for your time.
I thank you, sir, and good evening.
Thank you. That's the Chief Executive Officer for Khato Civils, Mr. Mongezi Munyani, and he was explaining more about the work of Khato Civils in Africa, as well as the progress of the Salima Lilongwe water supply project. Thanks so much that you joined us in this special program. We apologize for the problem with the audio. My name is Chancellor Mozabanda. Have a good evening.